Welcome back to the DG Podcast. This is episode 92, part B.
Holy crap.
Yeah, we're getting closer and closer to episode 100. So
go figure.
Yeah. You doing anything new this past couple of days?
I went last week of spring break for campus.
Right.
Which was off for the great majority of us, except for maybe like Jason, who didn't notice that it was spring break.
Well, the thing is that the spring break for my kids comes at the end of the month. And, you know, when we used to actually go do our karate on campus, then I would kind of notice because campus was closed and we didn't practice. And now we're meeting in this other gym, so Sensei's like, hey, we're going to keep going. So it's a lot less noticeable now.
Yeah, I hung out with Lindsay, played some games. See, here's the stupid part. Lindsay had to go into Salt Lake Saturday to see her family.
Okay.
And you had that goofy moment of she wanted me to go.
Right.
Well, I don't really enjoy hanging out with people in general, let alone people who aren't my family. You know what I mean?
And whom you're not really a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm not a big amicable guy where I'm like, oh yeah, let's go hang out and chat with people, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to meet with this friend of hers that I didn't know and I didn't want to know. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I don't need to know everybody. And she wanted to go because she hadn't seen the new baby that her brother had. So I was like, well, look, your brother's going to take you out to dinner, and I'm going to insist on paying for myself, and I'm going to have to pay for it when I don't really have any money. And then your friend wanted to take you out for your birthday for a lunch, which I'm going to have to pay for because he's not going to pay for me.
Right.
So suddenly I'm paying for meals when, if I have very little money, I prefer not to spend it on meals.
Right.
But like, so it's like she didn't need me there, but she wanted me to go.
Right, you're the boyfriend.
Yeah, so she went out of her way to make it so that like, oh well, we're not going to go eat with her friend. We packed a lunch, and she told her brother that she didn't have time to whatever. And
right.
So he didn't take her out to eat simply because I didn't want to have to pay for myself. And I was like, it's not that big a deal. Just go and get a free meal. I don't have to be there.
Right.
And yet, apparently I did. So I went, and I was there.
And you scored boyfriend points.
I don't know. I don't really care about counting those things. See, Chance had told me when he got that Little Mermaid game that she beat, that she couldn't beat, you know, when she was 5, and she finally beat when she was an adult, which was really cool.
Right.
He told me, he's like, well, now I got you brownie points with a girlfriend, and I was like, I don't know what that means, and I'm not really the type of person to cash it in, so it kind of didn't do anything.
Well,
but she super appreciated it.
See, that's the thing. It's like, you don't have to... Yeah. This is completely my opinion on relationships and stuff. You don't want to cash in that kind of stuff. What you do is you do something thoughtful, and you let them reciprocate later. Of their own free will and choice. It's not like you're sitting there, you go, remember that video game I got you? No, you just be nice, and you do something nice.
When you do that scorecard thing, it always turns out goofy.
Yeah. You don't want to keep a scorecard, because then you're counting scores, and that's stupid, and that's going to put pressure on your relationship. You just do something nice and thoughtful. You don't think, hey, I'm going to get something from this in return. And when something good comes your way because of, you know, your thoughtfulness earlier, it's just a bonus.
See, we don't function like normal guys, and I don't have the capability of capitalizing on anything I get out of it. It's like, what am I going to get? Like, hey, can you vacuum my carpet? That was... Well, did I ever tell you about that stupid joke? When I first met her, she had a lot of past relationships where guys took advantage of her.
Right.
And I was like, how do you know I'm not taking advantage of you? And she's like, well, you're not the type. And I was like, well, goes to show you, secretly, I've been wanting you to vacuum my carpet. And it's just a long-term plan where eventually down the line, we'll be dating, and I'll be like, yeah, can you vacuum my carpet? And then my mom's going to walk in the room all awkwardly, and I'm going to be laying on the bed like half awake, and she's going to be vacuuming, and she's going, why is Lindsay vacuuming your carpet? So I still haven't been able to capitalize on that.
Well, there you go.
One day it'll happen.
So I played a little more Dishonored.
How do you like it?
Well, I do like it. I do enjoy it because there's I can go through and I can murder everyone approach, which just makes it...
I had more to add, but keep going.
Well, that just makes it like any other game out there. But if you go through it from the perspective of, how can I sneak around here and not murder anyone? It makes it a much more challenging and puzzling game.
It's so easy when all you do is walk through and murder people.
Uh-huh.
When it's stealth, it's actually like, ooh, how do I get over there from here? And it becomes kind of like a chess move.
Yeah.
That's why I always dug stealth games. Some of my favorite games were always like the Splinter Cell series and stuff.
I gotta figure out better places to hide the bodies, though.
Always down a hole if you can get away with it. Always in a frequently, like, trafficked room.
Right.
Like, usually bathrooms or closets or something.
See, this
is from years of stealth experience.
Well, the last level I played, it was the Overseer level where you go in and you have to either kill him or brand him.
Oh, yeah, you get him in the chair. And
Uh-huh. And I was going through and I was trying to do it so that I was just going to brand him and do the non-lethal approach. And I got to the end and found out that I'd killed 2 people. I'm like, when?
You threw them over a thing or something and they snapped their necks? Like, that can happen. That can happen where you go to hide a body and you chuck them and like their necks snap and you're like, oh.
Well, I
didn't mean for you to die. I just wanted you to stop trying to find me, and I wanted to hide your corpse.
This one dude, I tossed him in this entryway, and then I closed the door. And then I went and I found the other dude, and I choked him out, grabbed his body and tossed him in the room. And I think I tossed him a little bit too close to the wall, because suddenly there was this big bright splash of blood against the wall. And I'm checking, and it still said he was unconscious. But I think it may have been reading the guy underneath. And the guy on top was actually dead.
Really?
Yeah.
One of the main points when I went out is we actually, for the heck of it, because we were out, went and found some of the used game places in Salt Lake. Since it's a bigger city, it's like,
right.
There are places to find stuff. We ended up going to a comic book shop, and we ended up finding this one used game place.
Cool.
And the used game place didn't have a lot. It was very clean and very nice, but they didn't have a lot of games. But they did have some Sega CD and some Sega Saturn, which is super uncommon to find anywhere. But they had some in there. And I was like, interesting. So I went in and looked around and looked at some of the games and priced them. And there were a few games that were reasonably priced. And I think Chance might actually be proud of me. Once again, somebody with almost no money sort of motivates you to find the good deals.
Yeah.
So I got, and this became a really long learning experience, but I got Budokan for the Sega Genesis for $3.
Huh.
And I got Kung Fu for the NES, which everybody remembers, for $8, I believe it was. And it's normally like $15, so it wasn't a bad deal. I learned some interesting facts. So when I came home to go play Budokan, because I was really excited, I was like, well, I got some used, retro games, so this will be cool. So I had to go put in Budokan, and it wouldn't work. And I tried a bunch of different things, and it wouldn't work. And I read online, and I learned an interesting thing. Do you recall the Sega Genesis cartridges?
Yeah.
With the yellow tab that were longer than normal?
Uh-huh.
Okay, those are made by EA. And there's a reason why they had the yellow tab and were longer than normal. I'm getting text messages. EA did something interesting back in the day. They got a hold of the Sega Genesis like developer kit.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wanted to make games for it, but they wanted to do it on the crazy cheap.
Right.
So they got a hold of a developer kit for Genesis.
Okay.
And reverse engineered it so that they could produce games and bypass the security lockout that existed in the Genesis.
Nice.
So the only way you could actually make a game was using the official developer kits. They could just do it, doing whatever they wanted to. Now, you had to pay Genesis something like $10 or $9 or something like that per cartridge for each cartridge you produced. So that Sega itself got money out of the whole deal. Right.
Makes sense. So they want to capitalize on it.
Yeah, so EA was like, well, we cracked your console. We reverse engineered it, and we're going to tell everybody about how to produce their own games and get around you, and they don't have to pay you a dime unless you change the deal with us, and we get a special deal with Sega, and we only pay you $2 per cartridge.
Huh.
And they did this like late at night at this big developer conference or something. And it was super underhanded. It was just like, you know what, we're only going to do... And it's like they did this all-night meeting, and they came away, and Sega was just sort of pressured into being forced to give them the deal. So EA got the deal for $2 a piece, and that's why their cartridges are so big, because of the reverse engineering so that they could bypass the copyright thing in it.
Uh-huh.
So here's what's interesting. Down the line, as Sega produced new versions of their consoles, they added a chip that blocked out what EA was able to reverse engineer. And the only console that works with the majority of those early stuff that EA was producing was Model 1, but only certain Model 1s. I have a Model 2, and it will not play Budokan. And I had no idea that was why. And it developed into this big, long, learning thing about this whole drama between EA and Sega. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. I had no idea that had gone on. And that came across as EA just being, once again, the world's worst company.
Yeah.
But go figure. So I own a $3 copy of Budokan that I cannot play. So I went and found an emulator, and it's not the same because you don't have the same controller and stuff. But I found an emulator, and the game was actually pretty cool. There's a lot of complaints about the fighting system in it, mainly because it's harder to understand. You only have one button and a joystick. Okay. So you move the joystick. So I'm playing Mario 3, and I just... you move the joystick forward. You actually could do stuff like karate or kendo, or use nunchaku or something, and fight in interesting different ways. And you have tournaments and whatnot. So if I push forward on the joystick and I hit one of the buttons, because all the buttons do exactly the same thing weirdly enough. If I hit forward, he does a straight kick or a Maimiri in our terms.
Right.
If I hit backwards and one of the buttons, he does a side kick.
Okay.
If I hit forward and one of the buttons at the same time, he does a punch. If I do forward and one of the backward and one of the buttons, he does something else. It's this interesting sort of way they developed a fighting game that only works with. It's almost like you need a joystick, like an arcade stick, to be able to actually play with it effectively. Right. You know what I mean? Never played a game like it before. I actually don't mind. I think the fighting system's really cool, and they did a really good job with how the characters move and the animations and stuff. Most people just don't like it.
I think it's one of those things where when you get used to the way Street Fighter did things, and then you go into a...
Well, this was pre-Street Fighter, I think. Well, at least pre-Street Fighter 2.
I guess what I should be saying is the way the arcades did it, where you had a button for punch and a button for kick, and it wasn't dependent on which way you were moving at the time. I think that one's maybe more intuitive, where you're pushing the direction, and then your character does something based on what you're doing. But I think when you get used to I have a button for punch and a button for kick and a button for this and a button for that, you don't like those ones. Whereas they may actually function better.
It may. I think it would work better with a joystick, and I don't have one that works with the PC, or have one, period. And mine doesn't work with my my Genesis anyway, so it's like you have to get a specific kind of Model 1, and how much effort that would be, and extra money just to play one game.
Right.
I have like Madden 97 that also doesn't work with my Genesis console,
that's EA.
too. Yeah, because that's one of those EA yellow tabby deals. I did get Kung Fu. I keep dying on level 2. One interesting thing is I played NFL 2K2, which me and Chance talked about earlier today. He loved the game. I have a habit whenever I play a football game, whenever you play a season through, is to pick one of the worst teams I can find, because it sort of amuses me to have like the Browns win the Super Bowl.
Right.
It just makes me happy.
Or
to
the
see
Lions or something like that.
Yeah, and so I've been playing with like the Cardinals, and I just can't. I don't understand the game controls very well and stuff, and I'm not doing very good. And Chance is like, because it's the Cardinals, and I was like, well, yeah, but it's more challenging, and it's funny to me when the Cardinals win the Super Bowl. But I've been doing that. With all the extra drama stuff to talk about, but yeah.
Well, Rhett and I, we carpool to karate class, and a lot of times what we do is we sit and talk on the drive, and we have these conversations, and then we're like, why are we having this conversation now when we should be having it while we're on the show?
Yeah, well, we kept like getting deeper into it, and I was like, just shut up, and we'll do this later.
Well, there's
save it for the show.
There's 3 things. Because we talked about AI, and I don't mean the Steven Spielberg show AI. We got on the subject because we were talking about Chappie, the movie. And then we talked about the fact that the new Ms. Marvel is Muslim in the comics. And
well, let's get one topic at a time.
I was just gonna, and there's this other one. I had an idea for an RPG video game, and we had some good ideas come out of that one, I thought.
Oh yeah, we actually, for 2 people who game, we can come up with clever ideas for how a game should be done. It's just we have no skill set in order to produce said game. It's like, oh, it should do this, this, and this. Well, yeah, the characters should do backflips and work perfectly, but how would we actually program that to work well?
See, we need to get some rabid fans that are programmers. and Hollywood
but we don't have
agents.
Chance has no marketable skill set.
He can sell couches.
He would argue that he's, to be fair, well, he could sell couches, but to be fair, Chance is decent with audio work. Which is fair, but still.
See, that's the thing. Once we get, in the groove and start getting more listeners, we need to send them to Chance, because nerds always need couches for their big screens and their consoles.
We're never going to get more listeners. Are you joking?
And
there'll come a time when we'll have like thousands of listeners, which won't happen. But there'll come a time when we have thousands of listeners, and we'll still pretend that only Chance is the one that emails us.
It won't matter what your actual name is.
Man, I wish you guys
would
would email us. And we get like thousands of angry messages like, read my email, you pieces of crap. It's like, yeah, I don't think anybody listens to this thing. Shut up, you guys. I want to get angry because you guys are racist for some reason.
Well, anyway, we were talking about AI, because, that movie Chappie. What happened was we were driving past the movie theater, and I mentioned to Rhett that when I looked up at the marquee the other day, I was looking at the movies, and I was just like, none of these titles seem at all interesting.
I didn't know what half of the movies were, and I keep tracking new trailers that come out. I was like, I don't know what that is.
Well, the thing is that even this movie Chappie, that now that I know it's a sci-fi movie and it's about AI, they couldn't come up with a better title than Chappie.
Hugh Jackman plays a apparently redneck racist. Racist against artificial intelligence, so it seems weird. It's like they picked the one, like, closed-minded cliche against artificial intelligence. I was like, you couldn't be a little bit more obvious.
Well, see that...
Like, maybe he should walk around with, like, a KKK outfit, or burn a flag and be like, I don't think AI is a very good idea, you guys.
Well, we've said it once.
Thanks, Hugh Jackman.
We keep reiterating it. Hollywood has no creativity. Anyway, so the idea, being that in this movie, Chappie is, I guess, the AI, and he's, they're trying to portray it as a Pinocchio thing, where he's like, I'm a real boy. But, and I liked your take on it, that even though he's been programmed to have these emotions and things, he's not Pinocchio. Pinocchio still had a soul that was given to him, somehow, magically, whatever. Whereas Chappie's still just a bunch of computer bits.
It's that same argument that everybody's been going over with AI, where it's like, we've been talking about this for decades. The speculation of an artificial intelligence gets created. Is it really human?
Right.
Or can it really, like, be considered a sentient being? Is it really, like, a something, or you know what I mean? Like, could it exist with man, and et cetera, et cetera? First of all, no, it is not a person. In a very cliched way, clearly it doesn't have a soul.
Right.
And everyone would be like, well, souls don't exist. It's like, well, that's not the point. It doesn't have a soul in the sense of whatever sentience you seem to think that an AI has is only what you gave it. It was programmed to believe it's alive. It was programmed to think on its own. It was programmed to have self-awareness. None of it was given to it. It's all what you had given to it. It's nothing it had on its own.
We have our self-awareness because we basically have to gain it bit by bit as we grow older. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's one of those. It's self-aware on the basis of you made it self-aware. It's not really a self-aware sort of sentient creature, if you will. And people would argue, it's like, well,
what is sentience?
What is sentience? And the thing is, that doesn't really matter. You programmed it to have sentience, and it is what you gave it. It doesn't exist on its own. You attempted to create such a thing.
Well, and that's somebody's going to bring up the fact that, like, I attempted to create a child with my wife. But
here's the difference. Ahead. We've talked about human beings and animals are clearly different in certain ways. And in one specific way that I'll give you is, from birth, animals sort of have... Their brains are only as big as they need to be because their brains have exactly what they need to survive. Human beings do not. Our brains develop as we grow. Now, for those of you who understand this, perhaps I could put it in a similar way. When a deer is born, it's a deer right from the get-go. Like, it'll stumble around, but then it start running in the forest, and it's eating grass. Like, it kind of knows generally what it needs to know. It doesn't have to learn a great deal. Babies from the get-go, they're stupid. Like, they can't do anything. They have to take a long term to develop cognizance, to develop data in order to work off.
Right.
And that's why we are so different, is because we develop... our brains are as big as they are because they develop as we go, whereas most creatures actually sort of... Their brains are as big as they are because they have exactly what they need to survive as they go. Robots don't really do things in a similar way that we do. Robots are given what they need, and then they're taught how to learn. There's a huge difference between that and how the human brain functions. Do you get what I mean?
The robot is more like an animal in that sense.
Or the AI, if we're going to be more specific.
What was that?
Or the AI, if we're going to be more specific.
The AI is more like an animal in that sense because you give it what it needs.
Well, that's what made human beings so unique in the animal kingdom. Is we, from the get-go, we sort of what we knew is what we took in from our environment. Animals just sort of come out and they're like, yeah, I know how to
walk, I know how to
children,
eat.
And I can hunt, and I have certain instincts that are inherent. AI, I think there's a huge attraction to AI for a few different reasons. There's the progressive sort of crowd that like the idea of AI because I think they believe in an ultimate sense that mankind will never evolve past our basic sort of violent, aggressive, stupid tendencies, which I would argue, no, we're not gonna. Mankind does not develop itself over the years. The only thing that's truly changed is how we've been able to structure freedom in our society and what we value.
You know, I had
to them, it's like the next stage of evolution in the most ironic sense with like the X-Men is literally AI, where they'll just come out and they'll just be smarter and they'll be able to, be better than us. And I think that's the romantic ideal that they see in it. I think it's BS. They're on their way to creating something to replace themselves that simply will do what we gave it to do. So it'll get to the point where it'll replace us because we want it to, not because it wants to.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that want to shift that responsibility off of themselves onto something else that they feel can handle it.
Right, but they don't want to have to take responsibility for their lives or understand that mankind will always struggle and nothing is ever going to be perfect and there will always be war and conflict. They're just like, you know what, let's just create something that can do better. And it's romantic, but it's stupid.
The thing about the mankind not getting any better, it always reminds me of, I think it was a history teacher. Maybe it was a religion teacher. I forget at this point. But he said, point blank, mankind is too selfish for communism to work.
Yeah. There's certain things that's like communism on paper seems like a great idea. Everybody works together, but it in the very realistic sense wouldn't work because somebody always has to be in charge. Nobody's willing to work for the collective. They're all only interested in sort of working for themselves. Nobody's going to work really hard to grow food for everybody else, which is why so many people died of starvation in China when they had collective farming. Like, if you don't believe me, Mao Zedong literally killed more people than Hitler and Stalin combined.
Which is amazing.
Part of it because of his philosophies of collective farming and creating a way. It's like, and it was weird because it worked initially for a few years.
But then somebody realized that I get paid the same amount whether I work or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if I produce less, I still get money. So all of a sudden, production went down the crapper, and nobody actually had. I'm in trouble. Nobody actually had. I literally had Abu sitting right over my head with his eyes shut because I turned and looked at him at the last second, and I was like, "This isn't good." I'm sucking it out. They just all realized that they didn't have to work hard and still got stuff, and then production plummeted, and everybody starved.
Exactly.
If you don't believe me, read history, you guys. At any rate, the point with AI is that we like the idea of something doing better than we will, and I think people think that's just the next stage in human evolution when it's not human, and it'll only be what we allow it to be. It'll be as intelligent as we create it to be. It'll learn because we want it to. It'll never be its own thing. It'll always simply be based upon the limitations of what we gave it. Even if those limitations are greater than our own capabilities.
See, the thing is that what people need...
it'll still only have those limitations.
What people need to do instead is take responsibility for their own idiocy and teach their children the same thing.
Well, that's almost impossible to ask of mankind.
We're always looking to blame somebody else. Even me. Actually, in the podcast, it's my fault anyway. So,
even Jason blames himself.
It's all my fault.
I just don't buy the AI pie in the sky belief system. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think...
It's kind of funny that scientists...
It's ideal.
What was that?
I don't think it's ideal.
Well, it's kind of funny that scientists in this area go back and forth so much on it. They're like, some of them are saying, yes, we'll have AI, and some of them are saying, no, we will never have AI.
Well, it's that old argument of mankind is brutal. Was it Hume's? No, it wasn't Hume. Gosh, the British philosopher, he wrote, he wrote this horrible book about the nature of mankind. It wasn't Hume. He'll come to me later. But the quote from him was, mankind, or it's like the life of man is terrible, horrible, brutish, and short.
Nasty, brutish, and short.
And that's how, nasty, brutish, and short. And that's how he saw the existence of mankind. Is whether or not we see ourselves as better or worse than said coincidences. But
Thomas Hobbes.
I don't know. Hobbes. Hobbes. And he wrote... What was it?
Incidentally, Hobbes is was the inspiration for Hobbes from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, Hobbes was kind of a scumbag. He actually believed that mankind needed a ruler because we were too terrible to rule ourselves. He literally argued that.
Some days you look at the world and you think, maybe he was right.
Well, I'm an advocate of personal freedom, so we can always turn that into aggressive political discussion.
Chance is salivating right now as we speak, and he doesn't even know why yet. Yes.
Somewhere in Arkansas, Chance is drooling. I never bought the AI argument. I never thought it was worth a darn. And they've done it in so many different movies. Not just with this Chappie thing, it'll be in something else. And it's like, so what happens? Do they kill off mankind and replace us and then do what? What's their motivation? They don't have ambition. They don't actually want to do more than what they have. They'll only be what we tell them to be. So are they gonna...
What I always think is funny is that...
exist solely to spread and then destroy all sentient creatures because we told them that we're terrible and they need to do better than us?
What I always think is funny is that...
Or are we going to live together?
In these movies, they create these AIs and then they attribute to them human emotions and factors. And things like that the AI would become, for some reason... ambitious enough to destroy humanity and replace it with robots.
It'll be as ambitious as we tell it to be.
Anyway.
Which is why Asimov had to write that...
The 3 Laws.
The 3 Laws. Mainly because he knew that people would be like, well, what if they got out of control and decided to do crap on their own? Well, that's a good point, Asimov. What are we going to live peacefully with them? Are they going to be our servants and then they're going to rise up because people believe that they're slaves or something? Because we told them that they were?
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen? You don't understand where the goofiness of this thing will actually spread. And this is way in the future. I don't think we're any close to a singularity, but...
No, probably not.
You never know. I think we'd set fire to the scientist's house before we ever actually had a singularity. The guy working on it, we would literally go over and be like, yeah, we're going to stop you because this doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't think mankind is ready for it.
That was funny that, the whole Terminator trilogy, the original one, was... They start out with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the one dude from the Resistance going back in time to stop Sarah Connors from being killed. Or, in Arnold Schwarzenegger's case, to kill her.
Well, The Matrix, I mean, how many movies you're going to point out where literally robots get out of control and
Well, the funny thing is that they made you believe up until the third movie that it was all so that they could take down Skynet and somehow avert that future. And in reality, at the end of the third movie, basically John Connors is sealed in a bunker. And Skynet happens.
Well, they need him around, I guess, to fight the war. And all three movies gives you the impression of, well, the future's going to happen no matter what we do. The new movie that's coming out actually changes everything. Did you see the trailer for it? I mean, some people get annoyed, but it's like an alternate future where the Terminator came and stuff already happened and he stuck around and he became an old man because his body aged. Huh. That's why you have old Schwarzenegger. And and it's like they literally changed stuff and the future was different. And I was like, well, I thought the other three movies told me it wasn't. Like, we were just going to be screwed, and no matter what you did, the future was going to happen. And all of a sudden in this movie, it's like, yeah, everything that happened in, like, all of the other movies is different now.
Yeah, well, what can you do?
I don't know, not watch it. Pretend it doesn't exist. If you don't see the movie, it doesn't change the story.
So we also then... well, what I should say is, after we talked about AI for a while, and we decided to stop that. What got us on the topic of the new Ms. Marvel is that I was working and I picked up a newspaper.
Well, let's start it from what I first understood. Because when Jason was talking to me about it, he said, from what I understood when we first talked about it was... there's a new Miss Marvel, and I was like, okay, the new Miss Marvel movie, and she's a Muslim. And I just sort of shrugged and went, I was like, well, I don't care if the actress playing Miss Marvel is a Muslim.
It makes no...
Like, who cares what her religion is? It doesn't make any difference to me. I was like, does she look like Miss Marvel? Does she fit the role? And then down the line, eventually I found out, I was mistaken. Miss Marvel, the comic book character, is literally... I don't know if she converted or is now a Muslim in the comic books. And my reaction was, why? Like, is this one of those sort of social engineering thing where they're literally going out of their way to try and create, I don't know, a justification to try and create awareness for it? Like, I always hate it when they do that heavy-handed crap. It's like, well, we're going to make her Muslim now, so we all have to talk about it. And make you feel bad because... you're a racist despite the fact that you've never been mean to or even cared whether or not people were one religion or another. You're immediately a racist, you racist.
Well, I just looked her up. Her name is Kamala Khan in the comic, and she's a teenage Pakistani American from New Jersey.
Why? See, it's you know what they're doing? They're trying to make this sort of... they always do this whenever they're trying to get more comic sales. They no longer write good stories. It's like the last big thing that all the news reporters talked about was when that one superhero came out as gay and then he had a big gay marriage. And all the reporters talked about it and it was on the news because that was free advertising. It's not because anybody cared... or it was a big deal, or even the story was any good. It was just sort of the pandering BS where they're like, well, we make a gay character and the first gay character marriage, and it'll be a big deal. And it's like, well, so make an interesting character. Why does the center of what the character's about have to be that he is gay or she is lesbian? Why does it have to be anything? Why can't you make the character a hero and then be like, oh, well, he's gay, but that doesn't matter because I'm saving people? Why do they have to go, well, this is the new Miss Marvel, we're going to make her Pakistani from New Jersey because that makes her more relatable to Americans for some reason?
Maybe. Maybe to Americans from New Jersey.
Well, yeah. It just, okay, we're going to make her Muslim and then we're going to have her live in the worst place in America. New Jersey. Look, I was talking to Jason about this and I was like, if I was going to go pandering and try and make a Muslim character, I would write the character interesting. I would try to make the character's life a struggle, try to make it interesting, try and make it not so cliched or whatever. So it's like, you know what I would do? I would make, we could just make a white guy, a blonde white guy who's a Muslim convert. You could just make him a convert to the Muslim church, and maybe he struggles with identity because of his race, and maybe he struggles with the fact that there's a lot of violence in Muslim areas, and maybe he struggles with maybe people that have problems with Muslims in some countries, and then Muslims cause terrorist acts. And you could see sort of like this religious struggle and a personal struggle. It would be a fascinating, well thought out, deep character. But they will not make that character because they will take Superman and make him Muslim because it's brand recognition, and they're lazy and racist. Because they have to tear down other people to build up.
We have this,
and it's bad.
We've talked about this numerous times. With the.
I really don't want to talk about it, but every time we bring it up, it pisses me off.
Well, I was just going to say that the whole woman Thor thing. Instead of making her like Thor's protege, and he's training her, and she is someone completely different. But no, they have to take.
And you know Thor? What angers me more about the female Thor? Not the gender, not that the whole like, well, she's not Thorina, she's Thor. She's literally him now. It was when they announced that crap, people cheer because they knew, hey, we're tearing down a previously established white guy just to set up this new character. They cheered because it didn't matter if the character was good. It didn't matter because if the story worked well. It was because, hey, Thor's now a woman. Everybody cheer. It's like if they came out and was like, hey, guess what? Spider-Man got fed up with Mary Jane. He's now gay. People would go nuts.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Why do you have to do it that way? Why do you have to tear down other characters? It would mean nothing to you. You don't read comics. You don't care about the character's plot, their struggle, or their story. You're just doing it because you want people to cheer when they announce it on Conan O'Brien. And that pisses me off because you're lazy. And it's honestly racist to do that because you're going out of your way to tear down other characters just to replace them with something that's more politically correct or to fit your social agenda.
See, that's what.
Why do you have to do that?
That's what people don't get.
I would get pissed
off about
off.
racism.
I've said this before. I would get pissed off if for some reason they killed off Black Panther, and we're like, yeah, now he's a white guy from New Jersey. I was like, why are you doing that?
It doesn't make any sense to do that.
Why do you have to tear down a perfectly good character to replace him with somebody else of a different? Why would you do that? You've already got a well-established character. If you kill him, maybe another Black Panther, a son, or somebody else takes up the mantle in Wakanda. You know what I mean? And maybe that character is not royalty. Maybe he's poor and he has struggles, but he's torn with the idea of trying to fulfill a role of this legendary hero that was the king of Wakanda. That's how you would do the character. You wouldn't make him some white guy. It would be stupid.
Yeah, it would. See, the thing is that after we got talking about this, I had this idea that what we could do, and it would have to be done well, because they could screw it up so easy.
I'm getting angry enough. I'm actually doing worse.
There you go. And Rhett talked about, making him a convert to Islam and everything. Well, what if he is actually Muslim? Like came over from the Arab Peninsula, came to the United States.
Well, he could just live out there for all I know. He could be Afghani or something.
Right.
It wouldn't matter.
Where he comes from.
You want him to be here, so to speak, so he can interact with the heroes here or whatever.
But the thing is that what you need to do is to make him conflicted, expose him to the racism. People here in the United States are afraid of Muslims. They are.
It's not as bad as people make it sound, Jason. There are racist people, but honestly, it's racist everywhere else. It's like after 9/11, where everybody was waiting for all those like horror story reports of something, and the most we would get is like one guy said something ornery at like a grocery store, and everyone was like, "Well, that's it. That's as bad as a racism guy." It's like I felt uncomfortable. I was like. At any time 50 years ago, you'd have had crosses burning in the yard, or at this time, like half moons or whatever, to symbolize the Muslim faith. We didn't have that. We didn't really have like people burning down mosques or anything. It wasn't that bad, and you're always going to have a small portion of racism.
But that's what I'm saying is you need to capitalize on that, and then also, and this is where it gets really touchy. You introduce a storyline where it pits this Muslim character against members of his faith who are on a jihad against innocent people.
Maybe causing a terrorist attack. And finding his struggle would be a fascinating story. I would feel bad for the character. I would read that comic.
It sounds fascinating. But like I said, touchy subject... They have to be done well.
They're not brave enough to make their own character. They have to pull it off of a previous
They have to take
character.
Captain America, and he dies and a Muslim takes over the mantle.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
And we're not saying...
Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't care if the new Captain America was Muslim, as long as he was patriotic, for crying out loud. That's the most important thing that happens.
He has to be a decent, like, Boy Scout type guy.
Oh yeah, he has to be very good.
And he has to be...
Otherwise, you failed Captain
Like
America.
you said, patriotic. America is my country.
He can't be like, America, get out of the Middle East. It's like, well... I mean, Captain America might even say that, because he goes against... he always does what's right. But he can't get all weird, and you know what I mean? He can't be all like, I'm going to fight for the Afghans now. Captain America's not going to be killing U.S. soldiers. I'm sorry.
That's not him.
That's not what he does. He might tear down the institutions that cause U.S. soldiers to do bad things, but he would not actually kill U.S. soldiers.
Yeah, he may go in there and crack a few heads and stuff, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but yeah.
Captain America establishes new jihad. Wait.
Oh boy! Actually, that might be an interesting comic if that happened. Where
they could have an alternate history of Captain America in the Middle East or something, or like Nazi Captain America.
Captain America switches to the Nazi side. No, what I was thinking was.
Well, no, like the Nazis win and Captain America is a Nazi instead. It's like that whole. You ever read Red Sun?
Fascinating.
Where Superman, instead of landing in America, he lands in the Soviet Union, and he's like a pawn of the government, and he's super Soviet and everything. And he does crap for them, and if I recall, Wayne is there.
They send him to the U.S. to be a sleeper agent, and he just kind of forgets his assignment because he gets so discouraged.
That was a fascinating sort of alternate story. I like that.
Well, what I'm saying is, like...
You can do this stuff if you want to do an alternate
history. If they were framing Captain America somehow.
Forced him to do stuff. I mean, they can always do that, but that's just not the point. At any rate, I just don't care for the whole change and stuff. Did the old Miss Marvel die, or is this just
a whole new thing? She took the name Ms. Marvel because Carol Danvers is evidently a hero of hers. Which is stupid, because she should call herself something based on the name, not Ms. Marvel. Marvel Girl, something like that. Get her own name.
Yeah. If I was a huge fan of Captain America's, I wouldn't be like, well, I'm going to take Captain America's name now. I'd be like, I have too much respect for the guy. I'd call myself American Kid or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Despite
you would get your own name. You may design your costume to look like your heroes, but you don't call yourself your hero's name.
No, that's a stupid thing to do.
Well, moving on. We spent quite a bit of time on that, but good discussion, I thought.
Yeah.
Tonight, we have the next round in our bracket. RoboCop.
Get hype, Chance.
Yeah.
Get hype, Chance.
Chance, you just need to get into the spirit, man. RoboCop versus Rambo.
Feel the hype. Okay, we need to get Chance excited. Okay, so RoboCop, I love him. I recently watched the new RoboCop movie with Lindsay.
It is.
And it's great.
Yeah,
have
I
you seen the new one?
I thought they did a really good job.
I thought it was fantastic. It had sort of the same 80s action violence feel that the originals had, which I think is hard to pull off.
In the 80s, it was a time for like over the top action, you know. And now it's almost like if your movie doesn't have a superhero in it, you can't do over the top action. You know what I mean?
Which is unfortunate because I miss the days of ridiculous 80s action. If somebody isn't like getting blown up or getting shot or fighting robots, then it's not worth watching.
Getting shot and blowing up at the same time.
And then using kung fu.
Exactly.
Lionheart. Oh, that movie's great. Did you know they kept making Bloodsport movies?
There are tons of them.
I had no idea. I was put off by that whole concept. I was like, really? There are more Bloodsports? I was like, how can they make another Bloodsport?
Oh boy.
The other one was already perfect. You can't keep making Bloodsports. How many Bloodsports can
At least 4.
At some point, the guy's like... At some point, Jean-Claude Van Damme has got to be like, you know what, there's too much
Bloodsport,
blood. There's too much
1 and 2 that have Jean-Claude Van Damme in them. And then after that, it looks like Bloodsport 3 and 4... Let's see, Bloodsport 3 has... does not have Jean-Claude Van Damme. It has Daniel Bernhardt in it. Whoever he is.
Wait, he sounds familiar. Who is he?
Look him up.
Anything else he's been in?
Let's see. He has been in Mortal Kombat Conquest. Evidently, The Matrix Reloaded. John Wick.
Huh?
Let's see. Let's see what his credentials are. John Wick, Knock 'Em Dead, Zombio and Julika, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Santa's Summer House.
He's in everything and nobody knows who he is.
Children of Wax, The Librarians. He was Agent Johnson in The Matrix Reloaded.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea who you are.
And then there's Bloodsport 4 that has Daniel Bernhardt again.
The Bloodening. Bloodsport 4, the blood.
It's called Dark Kumite.
Even more blood. The Dark Kumite. It even got worse. People still die, and it's Bloodsport.
Yep.
Guess what, guys? People bleed. It's a sport. Bloodsport. Who would have thought? I didn't think it would get this bad with all this Bloodsport.
Man, there's a lot of blood in this sport. So, RoboCop...
Bloodsport 8. It's really bloody in here.
RoboCop is a cyborg. He was a police officer who was targeted by assassins for...
Oh, Murphy. Are we going classic?
He busts in on a gang of bad guys.
I just get shot like a punk in the warehouse.
And he goes in there without backup and gets taken apart. In the new one, he was onto a trail of crime and he was following it where it led, and so the people who involved blew up his car.
Yeah, they blew up his car.
With him right beside it.
Oh no. I'm in that Mario 3 level with the angry son that always follows me.
Stupid son.
No!
You have to just run through that as fast as you can and dodge the sun. Anyway.
I'm trying. I got caught in the tornado.
Oh boy, Mario 3. Good times.
I hate you, angry son. Stop it!
Afterwards, they rebuild him to be the perfect mixture of man and machine, able to use his human brain to distinguish between actual threats and innocent people, and then to use his robot body to protect him and to enforce the law. It's kind of funny that in the new RoboCop, they put in that kind of thing where they only make it look like he's using his human will. They use it to fake people out, and at some point he kind of breaks their programming and gets back onto the case that made him what he was.
Which was always the story of, am I more man than machine? That I always thought that story attractive, especially when you become a cyborg scenario. It's like, are you more than the machine that you are inside of, and that sort of thing. Better than AI story. I can give you that.
Definitely. But RoboCop, his body is made out of bulletproof alloy. He has advanced targeting computers in his head. He doesn't have the human weaknesses. He's not very fast, though.
He doesn't have much for emotion either.
That could be a plus in this circumstance. And then there's Rambo. Now...
Oh, Rambo. Rambo's a psycho. He's got so many emotional problems. When he went nuts in
First Blood?
First Blood, and he started, freaking out, and the cops chase him down. To be fair, we've talked about this before, but they got a hold of a guy who was a killing machine in Vietnam, who had PTSD, and, sprayed him down with a hose in the police station. Is that the smartest thing you could do? He's gonna go nuts and start murdering people. What was it he did? He took out a helicopter and this guy fell out of it and people died. It was nuts. The best part is when he sews his wound shut, and I'll always say that.
It's the funny thing that with Rambo, there's a real difference between him and RoboCop. And RoboCop is built to be a heroic law enforcement machine, cyborg. And Rambo eventually becomes heroic after First Blood. First Blood, he's a psycho and he's killing people. And
you almost want to be like, one is programmed to be an ultimate fighting machine, and the other one's RoboCop.
Exactly. Rambo, excellent combat tactician. He is trained to use what's at hand. He's trained to use firearms, traps, whatever you need. Guerrilla tactics.
Well, he's sort of a minimalist when it comes to combat. He can have the big, giant, 50 cal or something. But he's honestly more of that guy that sneaks around and shoots you with the bow and then slits your throat in the middle of the night. I'm Rambo. And I would say that would be the kicker. Rambo.
Rambo isn't going to face RoboCop head on.
No, he's going to do it a bit more stealthy. Thing is, RoboCop's got everything going for him. The only thing I think that Rambo would have to do is he would have to sort of slowly take him down.
Wear him down.
Yeah, he would have to do the perpetual damage, and I don't think Rambo's sort of equipped for that sort of thing. Unless it's we start him out with a 50 cal and he's just blowing through. I don't think Rambo is set up to be able to
If we gave him a 50 cal and he went after RoboCop...
Even then, RoboCop's kind of a bad dude. His armor is ridiculously bulletproof.
Well, I was going to say, even then, if...
It takes direct hits.
If we give him a 50 cal, he might go after RoboCop head on. And I think in that situation,
and that would be a stupid mistake for him. Yeah, that would be a huge mistake for Rambo.
And I think you're right. I think he would try to do it stealthy. He'd try to go around.
And I don't think that's going to work on RoboCop, if I'm going to be fair.
It will be difficult for Rambo in any situation. And I think that RoboCop's armor, his other capabilities, targeting and all that stuff, I think that gives him an edge in this situation.
I would agree. As good as Rambo is, RoboCop's a whole nother sort of beast. Gosh dang. That's almost makes... Because if anybody, I'd say, might have a big chance. I mean, who are our guys next?
The next combat, the next round of combat will be between Judge Dredd and John Matrix.
I think Dredd definitely has a chance to take out RoboCop. It's just when you realize that Rambo can't beat RoboCop, it's one of those, how far is RoboCop going to go without being stopped?
Well, the thing is that...
But that's a fight for
I think we call it for RoboCop in this instance. Rambo, sorry, you're out of the competition. But who we have left still in the competition, we have a fight between Judge Dredd and John Matrix, and then that will... Other than that, we have John McClane, Mad Max, and RoboCop still in the competition.
Huh.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So we're calling it for RoboCop. We'll see who comes out on top in episode 93, Part B, between Judge Dredd and John Matrix.
What do you want from me?
Who's
RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what do you want from me? He's RoboCop.
Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Second chance, as usual. Let's let Aunt May die. Also, let's bring out an oldie. Don't do anything lethally stupid, which some of you are bound to do. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us as we roll on into episode 100. If you listen to the podcast and like it, please spread the word. We do love it when people listen. Hopefully we can roll into having a somewhat more successful episode 100 and not a depressing Chance episode again. We love you, Chance. Also suck it.
Later.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Distracted Gamers podcast. If you like the show, follow Rhett and Jason, the world's two most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast, or check them out at www.thedistractedgamers.com. If you loved or hated what you've heard here, email them at thedistractedgamers.blogspot.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason will care, since he hasn't any, of course.